Now, I'm going to take you through some of the basic tools we'll be using in Photoshop when we're creating our pixel artwork. Now, if you're familiar with Photoshop, I still recommend that you watch this lecture because things are going to be a little bit different in Photoshop when you're creating pixel artwork. So let's go ahead and let's create a new document. So we're going to go File, New, and like I said, we want to create our document pretty small so we can see those pixels. So I'm going to leave it at 40 pixels by 40 pixels, and the resolution can stay at 72. Resolution doesn't matter so much unless you're printing. So we're gonna go ahead and hit OK. Now let's go ahead and zoom in. We can do that by hitting the letter Z on our keyboard and then clicking and dragging, and that will zoom in on our document. Now, before we start creating anything, we want to make sure that our document and Photoshop are set up so that we can actually create pixel artwork. So the first thing we need to do is we need to come up to Edit, come down to Preferences, then come up to General, and we want to make sure that our image interpretation is set on the correct one for pixel artwork. So I'm already on the correct one, which is nearest neighbor. So go ahead and click this drop down menu and make sure that you have the nearest neighbor selected. What this is going to do is it's going to preserve those hard edges, and it's not going to create any anti-aliasing when you're drawing. Next, we want to make sure that our brush tool is on the pencil tool. So we're going to come over here where this brush tool is, and you'll see that if we select it and paint with it, it gives us this very undefined line that has lots of anti-aliasing. So we want to make sure we have the pencil tool, which will give us a very hard and defined line. So we can go ahead and undo that by hitting Edit, Undo Brush Tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold down on the brush tool icon, and it's going to give us all these options. We want to make sure that we're on the pencil tool. So now you'll see when we paint with it, it gives us a very hard and defined edge. Now you want to make sure that you're painting with 1 pixel. So to change the size of your brush, you can come up here to the very top, and you're going to hit down this drop down arrow, and you can change the size right here by dragging this back and forth. Just drag it all the way to the left side and make sure it's at 1 pixel. You shouldn't ever really need to change that. Next, we want to make sure that our eraser tool is also in the pencil mode. So we're going to select the eraser tool, and you'll see up here at the top where it says mode, it's on pencil, but you can see it can be on brush or block. Yours is probably going to be on brush, so just make sure you switch that over to pencil. So now you'll see we can erase things away, and we get that look of pencil. Now the reason why that's yellow is because our background layer right now is yellow, so anything we erase on the background layer is going to appear yellow. Now let's go ahead and go over some of these tools we'll be using. The first one I want to go over is the marquee tool, which is this tool right here. If you go ahead and select that, then you can click and drag and create selections in rectangular shapes. Now what we can do with this is we can grab and move it if we switch over to our grab and move tool, which is the tool right next to it, and we can grab and move that around the page. Go ahead and undo that. Now there's also a circular marquee tool, so if we click and hold on our rectangular marquee tool, you'll see there's an elliptical one. You can click and drag that, and that will create a circular marquee tool. So let's select our grab and move tool again, and you'll see now we can move that around. The next tool I want to show is the lasso tool. This is a very useful tool. You can use it to draw organic shapes, and those will become selections. So now we can grab and move that like so. Next, let's go over the bucket tool. So I'm going to go ahead and select out of this by clicking outside of the selection. Then I'm going to grab our paint bucket tool, which is this one right here. And you'll see what it does is we can fill in colors. So if I click on this white, it's going to fill in everything that's white. So that can be pretty useful. Another thing that's pretty useful is if we click and hold down on the paint bucket tool, it gives us these other options. If we select the gradient tool, we can create gradients between our 2 selected colors. Now if we go ahead and click and drag across here, it creates a dark to light gradient on here. Now the reason why it's not going into the yellow is because right now we have the type of gradient going from the dark color to transparent. So if we change that to our black to yellow, you'll see now when we create our gradient, it goes black to yellow. Now lastly, I want to show you how to change your colors. So if we come over here to our colors and we click on that, you'll see it brings up this window, and we can pick whatever color we want. This window is called the color picking window, and you'll see that down here at the bottom you get this number. You get a pound sign and then a number. Now, if you want to follow along with me exactly and know what colors I'm using exactly, when I select my colors, go ahead and copy that number right there and put it into your color picker, and it will automatically select to the correct color. So if I were to copy this right now, then I change my color, now I can go ahead and paste that number back in there, and it'll automatically take it back to that color. So that's how you can get the same exact colors that I'm using. So now that we have our purple selected, let's go ahead and hit OK, and you'll see our color changes. Now, this is our background color, and you can switch between the two of these by hitting this little arrow that goes back and forth. That brings us to the end of our lecture. So we learned that we need to set up our preferences so that it's to the nearest neighbor to get those hard edges between our different colors. We also learned that we need to make sure that our brush tool and our eraser tool are set to pencil and that they're the size of 1 pixel. Alright, that brings us to the end of this lecture. So we learned that we need to set up our preferences correctly in order to create pixel artwork. It needs to be set to the nearest color so we can get those hard edges between our two colors. We also learned that our eraser and our paintbrush tool need to be set to pencil, and they need to be set to the size of 1 pixel. We also went over some tools. We went over the grab and move tool, which can grab and move selections. We went over the marquee tools, which can make selections. We went over the lasso tool, which can create organic selections. And we went over the fill and gradient tool, which can fill in colors and create gradients. I hope this lecture was helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.